Affirming behavior. There is affirming behavior. And so what I want to do is I want to be sure that I put out there some affirming behavior. What does that look like? Okay, well, affirming behavior is when I include someone in an activity. That is affirming behavior. So you say, well, I do that. I put them in groups and I let them work in groups. They're included. Well, that's all well and good. That works on the affirmation from their peers. But how often do I include a student in an activity with me? You're going, what are you talking about? I'm talking about that what a student perceives is whenever I'm actually going to include them in perhaps making a decision. Because included in affirming that, there is, do I ever ask for advice? That's an affirming behavior. Asking for advice is an affirming behavior. So if I say, we're fixing to start working on a project, and I really think, instead of me just assigning it to you, if you and I talk about it, I think there might be something that you might be interested in before I plan that out that you could give me a little feedback on. Do you notice I've included her and I have asked for her advice? Now I'm going to tell you, I may take it or I may not take it, but it doesn't matter if in that case, I ask for advice. If I don't take it, I've still asked for advice. The huge thing is if I actually follow up on her and I take her advice. Here, try this one on. Let's say that we've just read a chapter. Doesn't matter what the chapter's on. We're in history, we're in math, we're in science. It doesn't matter. We've read a chapter. And so instead of me asking questions, what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to ask you to write 3 questions from the chapter. I'm going to ask you to write a right there question, one that you can find the answer to right there on the page. I'm going to ask you a question that's a bring it together question where you have to take 2 bits of information from the chapter and bring them together to answer the question. And I'm going to get you to ask me a question that is an out there question where I take something from the chapter we've read and bring something from the outside world together. Now I'm going to tell you that those are 3 great questions. You've got a knowledge level question, you've got an analysis question, you've got an evaluation question. That's really what you have when you have those 3 questions. Now what I'm going to do with those questions is I take them up. We don't answer them. I take them up. I'm holding on to those questions. And we use them a little bit in class discussion. And when I write the test over that chapter, you're going to find that I have pulled questions from all of your questions and they're on that test. There is something very affirming about that because what I'm saying to them now is I just followed your advice because I have included you as part of the test making process, and I'm handing them out. You know what? Who cares who writes the questions if they actually assess what I want to assess for that particular thing? I don't care where the questions come from. But it affirms. It's an affirming behavior. They've been included. I've taken their advice on that. Do I trust them? What do you do to show that you trust a student? I'm going to tell you what most teachers say they do. They give them a hall pass and let them go to the office and take a note. That is a trust thing. Well, yeah, that's a trust thing. But I'm going to tell you that probably with my middle schoolers, I really don't want any of them out in the hall. I mean, they need to stay in the room. Even my best ones need to stay in the room. Because if they get out in the hall, they can't remember where they're going anyway. That's why on the note you say, to the office and back. Directly down hall A, do not pass go or the bathrooms, and comes directly back. You've got 3 minutes to do this. Then I call the office from my room and say, I'm sending one down. Would you send them back, please? Okay, that's what we typically do for trust. There are those times in the classroom, though, do I trust a student? Let me show you this. I'm teaching something on the board, and I've written up there, and I'm fixing to start writing. So I start writing whatever I'm fixing to teach on the board, and I stop and I go, oh, wait. You know what? There's no point in me. I don't know why I'm going to go through this. Hey, would you, Heather, you go to the board if you would, and you just go through it, and you do it for the class right quick. I'm going to check the roll, and I want you to teach it real quick because they need to put it in their notes because it's something we're going to be writing down. That is a huge trust thing because I'm going to tell you that my students think anybody can take a note to the office. But there's a huge trust factor whenever I say, you can have my class. Because this is my job. I am putting my job on the line right now, Heather. Now, with middle schoolers, I have to tell them that. I have to say, my job and my contract right now is in your hands. Do not let me down. You need to be sure that you don't mess this up. Because if my boss comes in and finds you writing something incorrect on the board, it's me that gets chewed on, not you. Now with middle schoolers, that's appropriate language, and they go, okay, I can do this. Now she gets up there, and she's writing on the board, and she's going, he trusts me. He really trusts me with this. And she's thinking, oh, what if I do screw up? What if I screw up? And I say, okay, I can tell, Heather, you're worried about you're going to mess up. I can tell that. You know what? Don't worry. She's got you covered. Would you watch Heather, please? And if you would, if she does something wrong, would you correct it for me, please? Second level of trust right there. I've got another one that I care so much and trust so much that I got her watching Heather. But I don't have her watching or taking names because Heather's perhaps talking. I am trusting her with what is the most valuable thing to me. A skill that I'm supposed to be imparting to students. That is huge. I am saying, and you're going to say, you know, some of those things they tell us just in good teaching techniques. Yes, they do. But it has to do with affirming and reinforcing and validating the person, the student that's there in front of my classroom. What about spending time with them? Do you spend time with your students? That is validating. That is validating behavior if you spend time with them. You go, I hear about those teachers in the newspapers spend time with their kids. I'm not going there. These people get in trouble. I'm not talking about taking them to the movies. I'm talking about spending time with them. I have a 45-minute block. Spending time with a student looks like this. That's spending time with a student. Have you ever surveyed the students that you don't spend time with? Have you ever noticed that there's usually 2 people in the classroom that you spend more time with than anybody else? Now, if we go back and look at those things that are inferred, I spend all of my time with Pam. I just spend all of my time with Pam. Now, you know why I spend all of my time with Pam, bless her heart. She needs my time. But I'm going to tell you that other people would like my time too. You take an elementary classroom, for example. You think every one of those kids in that room doesn't want the teacher's time? Yes, but when this child takes all of my time, I have to be sensitive, and that's where educating up here, that's where the professional part goes. You know what? You got to get off of this and get out there. And all I have to do is go to them going, and look at what they're doing and talk to them about what they're doing. And then I make a personal, another thing with affirming behavior is noticing something personal. It's got to be personal. Whenever I'm working with Pam and she's got her hand up there, I'm going, did you do your fingernails yourself? Look at that color. I've never seen that color on fingernails. Does that fingernail polish have a name? It is called Sparkling Moonlight Madness on the Other Side of the River. How did they get that on the bottom of that bottle when they wrote it? Does it come in a bottle? You know, I've always wanted, now, affirming behavior. I share something about myself. And so I say, I've always wanted to write names for fingernail colors. Well, that would be a fun job. You know, I think that if I ever retire from teaching, I'm going to start writing the names of fingernail. That would be a cool thing to know that what I write is on the bottom of all those millions of bottles of fingernail polish. The color. They probably send you a color chart, don't you think? And you get to carry it around and you get to decide what it's called. I just think that'd be a great job. Okay, I'm going to tell you that sounds stupid, but I'm going to tell you that 6 years from now, when I visit with her in the grocery store, that's what she's going to say. Do you remember saying how you used to want to? And I'm going to say, yeah, I tell all the girls that. You know, it's just one of those lines that I use. So, but it is affirming behavior. As an educator, what I want to do is say, you matter to me, who you are matters to me, and so I'm having to buy in and say, I want you to know that you are worthwhile, and because you're worthwhile, it's going to make a difference to what you do in other things. So the affirming behavior are all those things. What about, do you know anything significant about students? Something significant. I'm going to tell you that what happens is many students share significant things with you. Many of them do. They share something significant with you. And I may or may not keep up with it in my head. Have you ever noticed the ones that don't? Do you ever notice that? Do you notice that there's a student that never shares anything significant? They're always trivial. They're trivial things. Nothing significant. The biggest talker in the class sometimes never says anything significant about their life. They talk to you all the time. Y'all just have the best relationship and y'all just chit-chat. But you get to looking at what they've told you. There is nothing significant about their life. They've never mentioned mom. They've never mentioned dad. They've mentioned no one important in their life. They've not mentioned any interests. They just chat about stuff that doesn't seem to matter. Well, affirming behavior is whenever I look at them and ask something about something significant in your life. I look at them and ask something, what about your parents? Now, I'm going to tell you that there's that time you ask about parents, you know what will happen. They'll burst into tears. Parents are on the cusp of divorce. Well, you know what? That's tough for the kid. But what it does do for my relationship with the student is to say, I get the opportunity now to empathize or sympathize and say, I'm so sorry. You know, if there's anything I can do through school here, I'm building a relationship. I'm saying you're worthwhile. I'm validating who you are as an individual. So I want to be sure that I'm using affirming behavior